Hey everybody, welcome to DVS Films Podcast. My name is Kellen. With me as always is my brother Brendan, and together we make movies with DBS Films. On this episode, we're actually going to go into the audition process, just in the sense of working on films. Again, we are more on the filmmaker side of things, producing side, but we have hired a ton of crews, multiple different staff, multiple different actors. So we want to try and give everyone who's out there trying to be part of this industry some insights into the pros and cons, what we're looking for. And then more importantly, we want to talk about our upcoming auditions. And by upcoming, I mean the sides are already out for you guys if you're listening to this right now within the Discord. And then the link to submit your audition is going to go live tomorrow. So very easy process to do, but we wanted to go ahead and highlight kind of what we see in the casting side of things when it comes from production, and then more importantly, what we're looking for when it comes to our audition process here at DVS and our Discord. And as mentioned, the Discord is the place to be. As you can see, this is where we work with our fans and for our fans. So if you're not part of this Discord, you really are missing out. Go ahead and take a look at it online. So I think, Brendan, the first place I want to start is almost go through the pros and cons of a Hollywood system and a indie film system, and kind of what the casting typically looks like. Again, all due diligence, we don't have direct experience going through these processes ourselves. However, we do have a lot of experience on the other side, and as well, we talk with a lot of our cast and crew, and they've kind of given us a lot of insight into just what you can expect. So, let's go ahead. Let's do the big ticket. Let's talk about Hollywood. So I think the pros for Hollywood is there's going to be a lot more opportunity, in the sense that I think you are going to have chances to audition. The downside to that right away is there's going to be a lot more people auditioning for these roles. But to me, I think the biggest issue that comes from Hollywood and the way that its system's done is, with any fine-tuned business at that scale, people tend to get exploited to some degree because it's easy to do so. And I think what ends up happening the most that we see is, even when you do get a role in Hollywood, if you're not that A-lister, you're essentially treated as a replaceable cog, because there's so many people, and because it's something that people are so passionate about, you can easily get crushed within that system. And more importantly, if you do want to commit to the Hollywood system, you really have to relocate and make it your job 24/7, just because they have no flexibility. You got to be here at this time, and if any of that thing doesn't work for you, next. So you want to kind of talk about what you see in the Hollywood system when it comes to the hiring and audition process?
Yeah, I think the casting in the Hollywood system is probably, if you're looking at cast for like a big time role, like a big time Netflix movie, like the kids for Stranger Things, for example, that's 1 in a million. That's essentially you have just as much of odds of winning the lottery than you do of having that actually happen to you. I think a lot of success comes from just having a whole bunch of smaller roles and then slowly building up and building your resume and getting better and essentially networking. Even if you're, a side character on a lot of these things, as a director, I'm always casting people that I've worked with before, even if they've, I've worked with them on very small projects, but I'm always feeling people out to see who are the people that I want to work with that I trust. And I think for Hollywood, it's just to get in there, to break that barrier is the first step. And then once you do that, you really have to hustle, you have to network, and it is time consuming. Like Kel said, you have to be extremely flexible, so it's not a lot of jobs that give you that flexibility. So you're going to be, pretty much operating paycheck to paycheck until you really break through. But I mean, there's just, in the entire film industry, there is just a lot of favors being pulled, whether it's festivals, whether it's casting directors. There's just a lot of stuff that there's behind the doors, deep backroom deals that go on all the time, and a lot of these things, and a lot of the film industry is just out of your control. Decisions are being made by people that may not have your best interests at heart. And there's just a lot of favoritism. There's a lot of nepotism. There's a lot of, just shady stuff that goes on. So you may be the best actor for the role. You may be the most talented person for the role, but you may not get that role. And that's just the way it is right now. That being said, there's just a lot of opportunities out there, especially now with, streaming. We're seeing kind of a golden age for production and for, acting. There's probably more actors working right now than there ever has in the history of film. So, I mean, it's all good. You have to take the good with the bad. And, like anything, it's a grind, it's a struggle. And, the cream eventually rises to the top. It just may take a little bit longer than you anticipated.
Yeah, it really is so many factors that are out of your control. So you really have to give it your all just to be in an area of having any opportunity at all, any at bat. I think one thing to mention though with Hollywood, obviously, they have money. I think it's something where if you look at the roles, especially as you make your way up, you're going to see some big jumps there. But I think the risk that you end up playing is, these aren't necessarily consistent career lifetime things if you don't break towards a certain thing. So I think you can easily expect way more when it comes to what people can pay on Hollywood when you do get a role. But I think you're also treated just, kind of as a cog. So do you quickly want to talk about where, yeah, most likely you're going to get paid more than on an indie set, but you're also going to have essentially no feedback or anything like that. And again, indie sets can vary, so you never know. But just from what we see, usually there's at least an intimate relationship with the entire cast for how small it is. Whereas for Hollywood, they are giving you your paycheck and you're going to do exactly what they say. You're most likely waiting around the entire day and then you leave. And we have a lot of experience with our actors. They talk about being behind the scenes or having a dialogue role, pretty small parts, but again, they pay good, but you're really just kind of go ahead and stand here. You don't even have a chance to talk to a director or anything like that.
Yeah, I think the main difference between us and Hollywood is like the opportunities that we give, because we only can have so many actors. You're going to get so much screen time. You're going to get so many reps in such a small amount of period. Within 7 days working on one of our sets, you're probably going to get 10 to maybe even 100 times as many reps as you would in a Hollywood feature if you're just an extra or a side character. You're going to get probably 60, 70 times as much screen time. So, working on that set and just seeing, I mean, I can see it in my actors from day 1 to day 7, they've gotten much, much, much better. And it's just coming from reps and being in front of the camera and just breaking down that initial fear. When that camera turns on, everyone's just a little bit tense and nervous. And I think that's the difference between an amateur actor and somebody that's experienced, is that the experienced person can feel emotion and portray the emotion in the scene with without that, essentially the fear of the camera, and just you can tell that they're tense. And I think that a seasoned actor can be natural and can just give a good performance with 100 people watching them, with $200,000 cameras, $50,000 lens watching them, where I think someone who doesn't have those reps, who doesn't have that experience, is always going to be very, very tense. And unfortunately, that tension is what you see when you watch a movie. And it's the difference between when you're like, well, why isn't the actor as good as another actor? It's just, they look tense and things don't look natural, or they're just overacting, is a huge problem I see with a lot of amateur actors without a lot of reps. But once again, that's all learned. People get much better. And it's just, you have to have hours and hours and hours in front of cameras to get good at this stuff. And I think, unfortunately, for a lot of indie film actors, that the opportunities are so scarce that they never have the opportunity to be in front of camera. They don't have a lot of opportunities to work with different directors, and they don't have a lot of opportunities to work with fellow cast members, which causes them to just, it stunts the growth. It's just, you really have to do a lot of projects in a very little amount of time to really grow and become a really good actor.
I think that's a perfect segue to kind of the indie film side of things. And to kind of clarify, indie film to me is really anything outside of that Hollywood system. So obviously, like a non-union type shoot. But I think it runs the gambit. I think it's student films, it's independent films that are doing distribution. It is some lower micro budget films that might even be union. So, I mean, I think it's hard to put down what indie is. But to me, it's something that is outside of the traditional Hollywood system or process. It's again a variable. But with that being said, let's kind of go ahead and highlight some of the benefits and cons. And I think you nailed the first benefit right there, where you're going to get a ton of practice, you're going to get a ton of work, you're going to get a ton of screen time. It's going to give you the opportunity to be a lead, which if you think of even in Hollywood, you have a handful of people who are typically leads. So it's giving you that opportunity. And again, that's something that you need experience more than anything. So having the ability to have experience is by far one of the best elements to it. I think the biggest con, though, is you most likely will not end up with a featured or finished anything. And I think it is the case where more indie films than not never get finished that go into production. So do you want to talk real quick? You know, you kind of highlighted the benefits of getting the screen time and being, you know, close to work with someone and being in more of an intimate setting. Would you want to talk about how the biggest downside is, one, these can run a huge gambit. You know, it's not standardized like a Hollywood system is, where you go X, Y, Z, and everyone typically does it. It's completely up to the producer, the director, how the set runs. And at the end of the day, the biggest risk is you will not have a finished product for your work. And also you're most likely potentially working at a discounted or lower rate for it. So there's just a lot of factors that make it inconsistent in that end.
Yeah, I think you have to kind of just have an honest conversation where you are at in your career. And I think immediately, if you're just starting out as an actor, take every single role you possibly can. And I think getting as many reps behind the camera, working with as many people as possible, trying to get any kind of footage that you possibly can is way more beneficial than being a paid actor. I know everybody wants to be a paid actor. They want to make good money. They want to get paid for their time, but you have to start with something that's just reps. And then, you know, I think when you get to the talent level and you've networked and you've worked with enough people, then the money will come. But man, I've seen so many actors, I've talked to so many actors who shoot themselves in the foot because they're like, well, the rate you're offering is less than my rate, or, you know, I want to be paid this amount, or, you know, they're kind of giving up an opportunity for money when, you know, and maybe they are getting a whole bunch of offers for higher budget stuff and, you know, Hollywood stuff. But in my experience is honestly the best thing you can get as an actor. And I think you really have to just have an honest conversation with yourself and see where you are in the system before you know, start to turn down roles. And I'd honestly look at, instead of the pay rate, I'd look at, all right, what are the odds that this project's going to be uploaded? If you're at the point now where you're like, all right, I can start to turn down some, you know, films because, you know, I feel good with where I'm at as an actor, then I would focus not on pay, but I would focus on, you know, the odds that this is going to get uploaded to a distribution company. What are the odds that this is going to go to a film festival? Because having a movie on Tubi, having a movie on Amazon Prime, having something that you can show, having sales data that you can show to essentially your agent, to essentially pitch yourself, is super valuable. When we talk to distribution companies, the first thing they ask me is, who's in your movie? What have they done before? And how much of those movies gross? Because they want to see how much star power that actor actually has. So I think that would be kind of a big thing. And, you know, we pay pretty well for our actors to come on set. We pay very close to scale, if not scale, for a lot of unions. So that's that's just a thing you have to realize as an actor, and you have to kind of, you know, decide what you want to do. Do you want to get paid more, or do you want to work on something that, you know, you're a lead in? And like Kel mentioned before, being a lead actor is huge. And even if you have to take a pay cut to get to that level, you know, it's something to look at, because and this is what I talk to all my actors. I say, look, you're going to get a 90-minute demo reel essentially, and it's going to be up on TV. It's going to be viewed by millions of people. Put a price tag on that? You can't. So I think you have to have an honest conversation with yourself, the same way that, you know, me as a director and as a filmmaker have an honest conversation with myself as far as like where I am in the process. And I think that's just what you have to do. And I think you have to, you know, when you get to the point where the payments are getting higher, then obviously, you can look for better opportunities. But if you're just starting out, you got to take anything and everything just to get the experience, get the networking, and, just get your reps.
And with that being said, I kind of wanted to boil down because I get asked this question a ton when it comes to like the TikTok lives and the anytime we're going on social media. They're asking like, what would you do if you were in the actor's shoes? So I'm curious to see what you would say. But here, if I was like, hey, I want to make acting my career, I think what I would do is I would first say I have to move to one of the hubs, which is going to be a Georgia, a Louisiana, California. I've been told even New Jersey and New York, some areas up there have like different little hubs, but realistically, it needs to be something where there are tax credits or legitimate incentives for studios to be part of. I think the first thing I would do is find a flexible job that I can live off of 100%, that I can accept the fact that my acting will give me $0 from me pursuing it. Then, as you mentioned, I would try and get as many opportunities as I humanly could. I would literally try and cast and do an audition at least 3 to 5 every single day. And nowadays, there's a lot of remote stuff too. I always look at Stuart from Girl in Cabin 13. I think he did an absolutely fantastic job. While he was waiting on set, he was doing auditions for some ads online. And you know what? I literally saw him in an ad like 3 months or so later. So I just kind of want to point that out. There's a lot of commercial opportunities and things you don't think about. I think I'd also have to start my following myself, which is a YouTube, a TikTok or something there, because if you can bring a community with you, that's the whole reason why stars are stars. The reason a star is a star is because if you slap them on a movie, whatever the movie is, people know who it is. We talked about Adam Sandler and why he's so big in kind of the indie Netflix scene. It's because they slap his name on there and it gets it. So I would try and build my community, but I think the biggest things would be you have to try and cast as much stuff as possible. You have to be able to make some sacrifice when it comes to the pay. Because again, what you're looking for is that experience. The experience of being on set is something that's huge. And I'll kind of explain what I mean after this, the next one. But do you want to give me a quick rundown of what you would do if you're looking to make it and, advice wise?
Yeah, if I wanted to be an actor, I would definitely take every single opportunity I possibly could. I wouldn't discriminate. I would take student films. I would take anything. You should be constantly auditioning. If something hits backstage or one of the casting things, you got to be on it. I would definitely grow my Instagram and social media. When I talk to distribution companies, the first thing they look at is how many followers does the actors have on Instagram? How many followers do they have on TikTok? They want to know the social media presence. I would work on a demo reel. I try and find a good DP, and I would essentially either clone scenes from other movies that you can act. I see it a lot on TikTok where you take a scene from another movie and you act it out yourself. You should honestly, this is probably one of the better things you could possibly do. If somebody sent me a demo reel of them acting out scenes from other movies and they were actually good, I'd be totally into that. And I would definitely use it. And I think that that's something you can do. You can take someone else's dialogue and just put your own twist on it and do your own, I've seen them cut in TikTok where they have the actual actor and the other person plays, or the actor who's trying to, the actor whose TikTok is that plays the other role, essentially. It's a great way to get visibility. Put it up there, social media presence, and you're getting a little demo reel. You never know who's watching your stuff. Great idea. But I'd try and get a good DP in there, and I would try and really get a really solid demo reel in there. That being said, as a director, I really don't care about your demo reel too much, because I know that there's just a lot of things outside of my control that I'm not seeing. I don't know how many takes it's taking you to do that. It could take you a week to just perfect that 2-minute reel. So I'm looking more towards, how you're going to work with me. And then I would say, as an actor, you should always be writing, write your own stuff, write other stuff. You should have the ability to be able to write a script and write lines, because when I do present a script to the actors for feedback, that the actors who are like, I don't really like this line, this isn't very good. Good. You're giving me feedback, or you're giving me feedback. That's great. The actors who are like, I don't like this line, let's change it to this, and give me an actual line or help me with change the script to how they see fit. they get bonus points. Those people are super valuable. And then I take improv, 100% take improv, because especially through my directing career, I've learned that giving the actors freedom and letting them take a scene and give it their own breath and their own life are more valuable than actors who can only say the stuff that is written. The ones who take control of the scene, who understand what I'm trying to get and can just give it life, are the actors that I'm going to always come back to. And that's your job. I'm paying you to give a performance, to give your own interpretation of my idea within reason, obviously. But the actors, especially in horror, your reaction is so important. It could be the difference between a good performance and a fake performance. And the best way to do that is improv, understanding your environment, understanding and being able to utilize the other actors and play off the other actors just gives you this cool energy. And it's just really what I'm looking for. So if I was an actor, those are the things hands down that I would focus on.
That's great. I think honestly, it really is something that there's a lot of different facets that go into it, but the biggest one is, trying to get out there as much as possible. I think it ties back. So this is something that I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on real quickly, but I think it ties back into it. I am of the personal opinion that I think anyone can act. I think anyone can write. I think anyone can be creative. I think the mere difference between someone who is professional and someone who is, amateur, not doing there, is the consistency of the performance that we're looking for and how quickly we can get there. I think, with our experience, both of us, especially working in, B2B marketing with people who aren't necessarily good with presenting themselves, you can work with someone long enough to get them to a place where they can give that performance that you're looking for. The problem is as we've mentioned in production, you have very limited time. So being able to have an actor who can get on set and immediately, boom, hop into it and get that performance that we're looking for, take communication and all those things, that is the best benefit. And I want this to kind of go twofold, because one, I get a lot of people like, I don't think I'm that good at acting. And I would say, I don't think you're not underestimating yourself. Acting is really, really hard in the sense of being able to do it on command right away. The actual ability to act, if you lie or things like that, which everyone does, you're essentially acting multiple ways. Typically people act completely different when they're even on work versus how they normally are with their friends. So I think a lot of people can act, but I think it's that experience we're talking about is what makes you professional. So do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with actors who it's essentially their first time acting. And I've worked with actors who have been on CSI and a whole bunch of larger shows. The difference with the actors, and it just goes back to what I said before, is the actors who are seasoned, who have been doing it a while, do not have that fear or tension when the cameras start rolling. They're naturally relaxed, and you can see that in downbeats. Just having a natural conversation without overacting is very, very difficult for an amateur actor. Seasoned actors can do it all day long and be completely fine and have a natural performance. But I also say, if you're a new actor, a big part of it is just pre-production. How much time do you devote yourself into learning about this character, studying your lines, studying your dialogue? Because if you're comfortable with this, it's like taking a test, essentially. If you've put in the time and the effort in pre-production, then when you come on set, it'll be natural. You'll understand your lines. You won't, flub up stuff. You won't get flustered. It'll be very natural performance. And I see a lot of actors who just don't put in the pre-production time that's needed for a lot of these roles. They're not used to having a lead role in a movie. And they think that, oh, I've been aside in a couple, movies before, I could say the lines the night before, and that's not going to cut it. So if you are a new actor, don't worry. Put in your time in pre-production, and you're going to be that much more confident when you step on set. It's like taking a test. If you study for a long time instead of just the night before, you're going to be confident. You're going to do a much better job. And I think, honestly, 90% of the battle is pre-production. It comes back to, for pre-production for the actors, as much as for me as a director. If you're both doing pre-production, we're going to have a smooth shoot. If only one of you is doing pre-production, we're going to have a rough shoot. If the director is not doing any pre-production, well, good luck. That movie's not getting made.
Yeah, it really is the case there. So I think there are processes, and I think that's something that's great to highlight, because now we can jump into our audition process again. We make movies for our fans, with our fans. I like to think we're kind of the best of both worlds when it comes to indie and Hollywood. You know, our movies are definitely going to get made, knock on wood, but we have a really good track record. And on top of that, on the horse, or on the indie side of things, we're going to work with you a lot more. You know, we're going to work directly with you. You're going to be part of the process a lot more, and you're going to have that screen time. So as always, we have open auditions and casting within our Discord. We give priority to our fans and our super fans. And I think the reason why we're moving more and more towards this is kind of exactly what you mentioned with the pre-production. And I honestly think everyone in the Discord needs to go ahead and thank Aries or Howard for this, because he literally proved that this is the model we want to hit home, because he was incredibly prepared. He was able to go ahead. He mentioned he was nervous and he had limited experience when it comes to being an actor, but he had out of the park. Home run, amazing job. So do you want to talk about why we are looking at casting from our community? Because having their buy-in to the project is something that is invaluable as a production team, in regardless of anything you do.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Aries, because what he did, is essentially what I just talked about. The guy doesn't have a ton of acting experience, right? Not a problem. You don't need a lot of acting experience to do this. Honestly, some of the actors who have less experience are better than the actors with more experience. I do not discriminate when it comes to acting experience. So here's a guy who doesn't have a lot of experience, understands he doesn't have a lot of experience, but he put in a ton of time in pre-production. We had multiple meetings. I sent him stuff as far as like watching movies, characters to emulate. Immediately he watched all those movies. And then he started to take those movies. And when I would do reads with him via Zoom, he'd take the character and start to mold the character. And we kind of molded it to himself, right? He studied his dialogue. He's like, hey, Brendan, I don't think I would say this. This doesn't make any sense. Can we change this? He worked with me on changing his dialogue. And he studied and he studied and studied. I had 2 hours devoted to Aries on set, right? To get this scene done. This guy got it done in 20 minutes, right? Because he knew his lines, he knew everything he was done. And at that point, as a director, it's great, because I'm like, all right, let's just like freestyle stuff. Let's try and get a more natural performance. And because he did the pre-production, because he knew what I was looking for, and because he was confident in his ability to actually play this character, he might have been nervous, yes, but because he did so much pre-production, he was confident in himself, and he killed it. He just kept getting better and better and better. And honestly, I felt guilty cutting him off, because there's probably even better performances in there. I just, we ran our allotted time, and that's what we got. And this is an actor who never really acted a lot before. I don't think he had a speaking role before this. And he came in and he did a great job. And there's no doubt in my mind that anyone else, if you want to do acting, you can do the same thing. But what he did was he put the time and he put the effort into pre-production. And the fact that that's what he did made him successful. And that's what you have to do. It's literally a test. If you do your homework, you study, you listen to the teacher, which is myself, and you work with me, you will do fine. There is no reason to be nervous. There is no reason to be scared. There is no reason to think that you can't do this. I mean, I see so many comments on TikTok and social media where they're like, I have no acting experience. This isn't for me. No, this is exactly for you. This is exactly who we're looking for, because the people with no acting experience haven't been corrupted yet by acting coaches and overacting. I will take a person with no acting experience over someone with a ton of theater background if they never had film acting. Film acting is very different from theater acting. So I think if this is what you want to do, if you want to be an actor, don't worry about not having experience. All you have to worry about is doing pre-production and listening to the people who are giving you advice. If you can do that, you'll be fine. Don't worry. Everything will be great. Your performance will be great. Just follow those 2 steps.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect way to sum it up. And then again, we always had our eye on Aries ever since he started helping out with the community. And we have our eyes on a ton of members right now because, again, we've had this Discord for a while now. We have people who are supporting us because we understand that if you're supporting us now, if you're watching our movies, if you're helping out, if you're doing all these things, you're gonna do your homework. You're gonna do your homework. Aries already was something where he knew what he was doing. And he's like, I'll do whatever it takes to make sure that we give the performance, because that was absolutely amazing. And this is why we are looking back to it. So I do want to quickly highlight the process as our last thing and kind of what to expect. Again, if you're listening to this by now, we do actually have more information. Frequently asked questions are going to be in the Discord as well too. So there's a lot more information out there, but briefly for those who are picking up now, just so they can understand what an audition with DBS is like. So here's essentially the process that we have laid out. It is going to be completely remote for the first round, super easy to do. All you simply have to do is we're going to have a PDF with the different roles and the sides for you to read from. Some of them could be monologues. Some of them might have someone reading back to you. We do not discriminate whether you have someone reading back or not. We are going to try and basically, look at your acting as much as possible. If you make it through that first round, and again, we're expecting thousands of auditions, so it does get whittled down a bit quickly. Then we're going to look at having Zoom calls with you. What the Zoom call is going to outline is we're going to go in detail with more of the different scenes that we're doing. And we're going to try and give you direction, try and get your feedback, everything that Brendan was kind of mentioning. We want to get your understanding of the character. We want to give you our understanding and see where we kind of land to see if we both understand what this character might be. From there, most likely going to be another Zoom call just to whittle it down again. We're going to start talking schedule. And if you do get casted, we're looking at flying you out, covering all of the expenses and everything from there. So this opening audition that we have is going to be the same for every single time. And I think to me, the biggest tip was something you were kind of mentioning. And honestly, it's way easier to say than done, because especially if you don't have the experience. But I think the biggest thing we're looking for in those first few rounds, does this character look comfortable? Does this look like a person that is a character, or does it look like someone who is pushing out acting? And I think one of the first things that we see is there's a lot of overacting. So if you could give a tip to someone who's uploading that video, whether it's for this one that's coming up, whether it's for the next one, what would be kind of the way, in your opinion, to approach, that, and what you're looking for when it comes to moving on to the next rounds?
Yeah, it's just being natural. I mean, that being said, like, look, we're going to get thousands of auditions. Casting is very, very difficult. There's a lot of elements that are just out of your control as far as like schedule, what you like, different things that I'm looking for. If you're not cast for this movie, keep auditioning. It's a numbers game, honestly. We will fly you out. We're going to cover your expenses. But I mean, literally the people who are probably going to get on this movie, I mean, 8 to 10 in 1,500 auditions. So it's like less than 1%. So if you don't get selected, just understand that it's a numbers game and just keep working at it. I think I would view this as an opportunity to begin your acting career. Like I said, no acting experience is necessary. But I mean, I would definitely try and relax and be natural. Just try and be very, very natural. That's the first thing I look at when I'm watching the first rounds of auditions. And I have to go through 1,500 videos, and we watch them all. We watch every single one of them. And immediately, if they look tense, if they look nervous, you may be great with, pre-production and like what I talked to before with, coaching and direction. But if I have 1,500 choices, like, I'm really looking for people who are going to be natural. And usually for the sides that I'm going to give, we'll give one very, casual downbeat that's going to require natural emotion and just relaxation. And we'll give something that's going to be very intense, and it's going to require you to feel a primal emotion as far as like anger, fear, frustration, or something that's going to be a little bit more primal. So it's going to kind of give me an idea of, all right, can you act scared? Can you act angry? Can you act sad? And can you just act natural and relaxed? So I think, for the people who are listening to this now, feel free to give me different variations, and we'll see what we want to try and do. But don't don't be disappointed if you're not selected. It's super hard to make these decisions. There's a lot of things that are out of your control, and it's a big process. It's very time consuming. And if you're not fit for this one, there's not saying that we're going to try and make a whole bunch of other movies that you're not going to be a good fit for the next one. I've worked with actors before that didn't make the cut for one movie that we've hired for others movies. They just were a better fit, or I've seen that they've made progress in their acting career. And, that's just kind of how it is.
I really am glad that you brought that up, because that was going to be my next and last point here is really, guys, if this is your first audition, do not underestimate how much we are watching these and understanding you as what potential roles. I mean, even when we've done throughout our DBS courses, we've always watched auditions and said, you know what, they're not good for this role, but because we know they exist and because they were really good to just through this audition process that we were working with, or just because we saw their tapes, we understood that if we cast a role, they're going to be good for that. So if we see you in this first audition, you're going to leave an impression no matter what. And we are actually going to look at kind of making a bit of a database to see, what we might have access to in the sense of talent, because we're really kicking the doors off with this Discord community now. It's going to be, in my opinion, one of the most consistent ways for us to get reoccurring talent versus, hoping the same actor will click on the whatever audition site that we have there. We now have a way to say, hey, guess what? This is coming on, and we know you from the past audition. It's gonna allow us the flexibility of roles. So real quick, before we go ahead and end here, do you want to talk about how it allows us as screenwriters then to say, you know what, we have a character like this? And even Aries, after meeting him, when we had a character, it immediately popped into my head of like, hey, he could be a great fit for this character. And now moving forward, we're essentially looking at specific roles that people we see could be great fits for in a more natural sense. It'll be easier for them to naturally fit that character.
Yeah, I mean, I put all the people who have if I meet you via Zoom, so that's usually the first cut. If I meet you via Zoom and we talk and you pass all the tests as far as like, are you cool to work with? Do I feel like you can get this done? Do I sense any hesitation from you? So you almost have to, at that point, pass sort of like an interview. But if you pass that, we put you in a database. I have an Excel spreadsheet of all the actors and their contact information that I've worked with before. And I pulled people from them. Those are usually the first people that I write into scripts. Tyler's a good example. He was in The Murder House, and I wrote him into The Shapeshifter, and he was in that movie. But I've also put people in other movies that they may have just missed out on a part, or someone was just a better fit, and I cast them in the next movie. So I think that sometimes there's just someone better as far as like a fit for that movie. And I think that's the hard part with casting. It's not always the better person gets the role. It's just who has a better fit for that kind of movie. But the more you audition, the more shots you get, and you never know, when we're going to cast you. And I think that we're going to create a database. And, when I'm writing this script, the easiest thing for me to do is to visualize people that I've worked with before and, write them into the script, because I know that they're probably going to be available and they're going to be ready for this role. And I've talked to them before. I've already done this, process with them. So I don't have to go back and interview a whole bunch of just random people. I know the person I want. So I think just working with us as many times as you can, as many reps as you can. This isn't going to be our last movie. Just continue to work with us. If you don't make this one, audition for the next one, audition for the next one, audition for the next one. And with each time, your acting ability is going to get better, and your odds of success in working with us are going to be, that much greater. I'm really looking forward to working with everybody. That's just pretty much it. It's just, I want to work with everybody, and this movie may not be a good fit for you, but I'm sure there will be one in the future that'll be a good role. So don't get discouraged, and just keep your head up and get better. Get better with us, and eventually your time will come, and we'll see you on set.
I think, honestly, in my opinion, if you start auditioning now, this is the first Discord audition. We had one through TikTok, but if you audition with the Discord now, and every single audition that we do, It is only a matter of time. Eventually, your chances in being in our movies, in my opinion, is 100%, simply because we're going to see that. And that's the type of people we're going to work with. If we scale up as a studio, 5-10 years down the road, we are going to have roles for everyone now. If we, look at this in a year, we might have, 20, 30, 50,000 members. It might be tough to say that. But right now, we are still growing. And it means to us that if you're being part of it now, if you're supporting us now, we understand how much it means to you, and we really take that into consideration. So, I wish we could cast everyone. I definitely share that opinion. But with that being said, always be sure to work with us as much as possible. And this is actually one of the major reasons we're rolling out the challenges, is because there's such limited opportunities in these movies that we want to present the ability to others to hone their craft, get the experience, get direct feedback from us. And it's a way for us to understand what type of actors we have while we're writing scripts. So there's a lot in the mix here. And again, we're just super thankful for all of our Discord members and everyone who is going to audition. We'll go ahead and watch every single one of these because, again, it means the world to us to have this ability to tap into this community. So that being said, our auditions are going live tomorrow when it comes to uploading the Google form, with the sides of being available yesterday. This is for our script, but again, we're going to do this in the sense of having this every single time we have a new movie. So if you're missing this audition, if you're listening to this late and the auditions are already closed, don't worry, you can always be part of these castings because this is something that's going to be a major part of DBS. So until then, have a good one.